Hi, I'm Jan with Academic Technologies, or welcome to part 2 of our mini-series on Trello. In this video, we'll be focusing on a specific board and showing you how you can customize the to-do lists and jobs on that board to give yourself more information to work with. If you haven't already, please make sure you watch our first video on this subject, as it helps illuminate a few terms we'll be using throughout the video. If you have any other questions while watching this video, you can reach out to CNU's Academic Tech Team or to me directly at jana.doherty@cnu.edu. Now, we are already inside the board that was displayed throughout our previous video. We'll be using the same board for this video. Remember, you can return to your main account page at any time by clicking the Trello icon at the top of any page, or switch to a different board using the Boards button on the left-hand side. So let's take a look at what we can do with this board space now that we're in it. When inside a board, you create lists, which further categorize the tasks you keep on a Trello board. Since every task is stored inside a list, you need at least one list on a Trello board in order to use it. You can create a list by clicking Add List, which will be on the right-hand side of any list that you have. You're able to give that list a name, so we'll call this Sample List. This allows you to, again, select the method that you use to organize your work. In my case, the tasks on this board are organized by the various projects that this hypothetical team is working on, with an extra list for weekly recurring tasks and one-off tasks. Again, this system is just a suggestion. I've seen boards organized by days of the week, by person responsible, by the level of completion a task is at, or any number of other systems. What you choose is up to you. In any case, once you've created at least one list on a board, you can finally add your tasks to it. Individual tasks take the form of something called a card, which can be created by clicking Add a Card at the bottom of any given list. For example, let's click Add a Card on our new sample list. It opens up a white space where we can add some general details or short description of the task. In our case, maybe we need to inspect computer labs for updated software. Once I hit the Enter key, the card will be fully created. It's important to note that I have to hit the Enter key if I'm on a keyboard to do this. Otherwise, once I leave the list, it won't be visible. If I click Add a Card, it's still there, it's just not finished yet. Once a card is created, it can be moved from list to list by clicking and dragging it across your board into that new list. This can be useful depending on your organizational system. For example, if you have a task in a Monday list, but don't finish it on Monday and need to continue working on it on Wednesday morning. You can also move a card into different positions within a single list. Say, for example, if you want to put cards in a list in order of priority. A card can also be further customized, allowing you to provide additional information about the nature of the task by clicking or tapping on the task itself. This opens up the card in more detail and shows you some additional settings that can be used for this specific task. The first one that you can see right away is the ability to make comments inside of the task, which can be useful for documenting the details of a task's progress. For example, if a task is being blocked from being completed until some other task is finished, I can note that here. I'll say blocked until end of semester. Maybe some students need to use this lab. This comment thread can also provide a space for people who need to collaborate on a task to communicate about this task. If I exit the card, I can now see that adding a comment will make a mark on the front of that card indicating that comments currently exist. The other bits of information you can add to a card are all listed in the tools on the right. The first, Members, consists of a list of all the users who have access to this board. Selecting a member will assign a task to them, placing an icon with their name on the card, and sending that member a notification when anything happens on the card, such as a comment. You can assign a single card to multiple users, helping any user at a glance identify which tasks on a board require their attention. You can also remove a member from a card the same way you added them, by going into Members and clicking on that member. The next tool is Labels. Labels are essentially colored spots that can be placed on a card by clicking on them. While these don't seem initially useful, as you can see, these colored labels can also be given names, allowing for yet more organization or detail. And for example, this board uses colored labels to show how far along a task is to being complete. You can name a label by clicking the pen icon next to that color, or create a new label with a new color by clicking Create a New Label. In our case, we're going to make a new label for Pending Approval. And I'm going to add the blocked label to this card. Once again, you'll be able to see the colors show up at the top of the card when you're inside it, along with the name that you've assigned to this label. When outside of a card, looking at the board as a whole, the card will just be marked with a small bar of color, although you can see what that color means if you hover your mouse over that bar. If a task is especially large or complicated, it may require a checklist in order to keep track of its progress. For example, the cards in this list describe video projects, which may include writing a script, shooting footage, editing, and publication. To add a checklist to one of these cards, you can enter the card and click Checklist. You'll be able to give that checklist a name. I'll call this Subtasks. And it'll create the checklist on the card. From here, I can add each individual subtask, such as script, shooting, editing, captions, and publishing. Once I complete a task, say, once I write the script and finish shooting, I can check off items on the checklist and see my progress on the progress bar above it. If I'm looking at the card from the outside, I can also see this checklist. This time, instead of showing a progress bar, it shows me how many items out of the checklist I have completed. In this case, 2 out of 5. Other types of tasks may require users to have quick access to other resources relevant to that task. For example, I have a card here that mentions documentation. I may need to have a copy of that documentation attached to this card for other users to look over and possibly edit. Once I'm inside a card, I can select Attachment, which will give me the option to browse from my computer or a number of different cloud locations. I can also attach a link if it's for an online resource. In this case, I'll add it from my computer. And once it's attached, I will see the attachment added here with the option to either download or comment on the attachment directly. If I'm using an application like Google Drive to store my documents, I can also use the Google Drive power-up to connect a document from Drive to this card. These power-ups are especially useful for dynamic collaborative tasks where people need to work together on the attached files without making separate copies that they've each been working on. The last main tool you can add to a card is a due date. For example, if you need to put a deadline on a certain task. When you open a card, you should see the due date tool and be able to set a date and a time. In this case, I'll set it for the 15th at noon. I'll see my due date at the top of the card, as well as posted on the front of the card when I'm in a board. A card with a due date that has already passed will show that due date in red. Now, those are the major tools available to customize a card and add additional information that both you and other members of this board can utilize. However, there are a few extra tools at the bottom of each card that can also be useful in other capacities. Let's open one up and just take a quick look. First, we have the Move button. While Move may at first seem like just a repeat of the drag and drop ability you can use to move cards from list to list, Move inside of a card does provide an additional feature. The ability to, if needed, move a card from board to board rather than just from list to list. Copying a card will make a second identical card to the one you are currently in, and allow you to place it in the board or list of your choice, which is useful if you have similar tasks and want to save some work, or want a reminder of the same task across multiple boards. It will also allow you to choose whether or not to keep tools such as labels. Subscribing a card will allow you to receive notifications about the progress or actions on a card without using the Members tool to assign it to yourself. This is especially useful for example, project managers who want to keep an eye on a specific task or set of tasks without confusing the people who are supposed to complete it by assigning it to themselves. Finally, archiving a card removes that card from the board. This is not the same as deleting a card because it can be returned to the board with a single click from a side menu. Let's take a look here at that. I'll be able to see any additional cards here and see those archived items that I can then return. In addition, a card can only be permanently deleted after it has been archived. Many people who use Trello for business or educational purposes prefer just to archive their cards and not delete them. That way, they can retain a history of past work that can be retrieved when needed. Now, these videos just cover the basic tools of Trello available in the free platform, designed to allow you to organize your work in an infinitely flexible manner. When using Trello, you have the freedom to create your own organizational system and use as many or as few of the tools that we've discussed to make sure that your work gets done your way. Thank you for joining us for this video on Trello. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us in Academic Technologies or to me directly at jana.docherty@cnu.edu.